Welcome to another episode of Ion Sullivan. I'm your host, Mike McGuire, joined today, as we are each week, by the chairman, Rob Doherty. Rob, how's your week been?
It's been so far so good, pretty good, you know.
Oh, the NCAA tournament's in full scale?
Yeah, that Patino loss was a little tough.
Yeah, one of these days he'll learn how to coach defense, but it tells you one thing clearly. The Big East is not what the Big East used to be.
Oh, no, it is not. They keep coaching professional ball in college. If they just coach some college basketball, we'd be all right.
Well, bottom line is, if you give up penetration, you give up baseline, and you can't defend the low block, you better really be able to shoot it, and his team didn't. Arkansas didn't shoot it well either.
That kid, Lewis, couldn't put it in Narragansett Bay.
Well, he couldn't even find Narragansett Bay from where he was the last 10 minutes of the game.
It's only 2 blocks down the road.
He was 2 blocks down the road, but he was sitting on the bench.
I mean, you just go over JFK Plaza, and it's right there.
And he had time. It's not like he was on the floor.
Oh, no, he had plenty of time.
He could have gone and looked around.
Yeah.
So, the report card on St. John's this year has been a good regular season.
Yeah.
Patino's been there 2 years.
Yeah.
He'll get some shooters this year, and he'll bring that team back next year, and we look for big things.
I still say the 7-footer.
Well, you got to get that big man. It's tough to defend the big man on the block.
It's very, very tough. And they take up a lot of space. They take care of the baseline for you. They do a lot of stuff for you.
He changed the game at Kentucky
when
he went to basically putting 5 people on the floor that could shoot threes. Mm-hmm. And now watch at St. John's as he tries to maybe move the game back, because they were hurting the low block.
Correct. So the way he coached in Providence was different than the way he coached in Kentucky.
And the caliber of players you're going to get at Providence is different from Kentucky.
Yeah, and I think he needs to go back to that, because I think that's who goes to St. John's.
I agree.
St. John's has never had that flashy player that didn't come out of Queens.
Correct.
Whether it be Walter Berry or Chris Mullen or whoever it may be.
They had some good inside players, but they were mostly what we call in the game lunch pail guys. They come to work, they put their lunch pail down, and they just bang bodies under the boards for 40 minutes, and they pick up their lunch pail and go home.
And when they had Wellington and Marco Baldi, I believe his name was.
Marco Baldi.
And those guys, and they used to get pretty deep. Unfortunately, Patrick Ewan was in the league at the same time.
But there were some classic battles there between Louis and John Thompson.
Correct.
Down at Georgetown. So, on total, from where St. John's was to where they are now, I think the report card is pretty good.
I think the father's very happy.
I'm sure that he is, and Louis is smiling, wearing an ugly sweater, smiling down on
that was
on
your
Rick.
stick. Yeah.
So we've gone through the report card for St. John's, and we're getting closer to summer, and that's where the campaign season gets kicked off in high gear.
Petitions are due next Thursday.
Yeah, so we're in it now.
Oh, you're in the thick of it.
And when you're in a campaign mode, you can say whatever you want, promise whatever you want, and we find that a lot of times people are promising things that the job they're seeking doesn't even deal with.
Well, not only that, they generally promise stuff and then they never deliver.
Right.
But no one ever holds them accountable to the fact that they did not deliver.
So right up our alley here in Ion Sullivan.
Correct.
We thought what would be a great thing to do for this week and probably next week is let's go through the report card on the Sullivan County Legislature and see how they're doing.
Well, I think that's a great idea. I think that we could do it for a couple of weeks, actually. Well, several weeks.
Sure.
I think we could do the new people that came in. I think you could do how the old people or the returning people are doing, and then the legislature as a whole. I think that's a fair way to go.
How they're reacting to the challenges that the county has.
Or creating challenges for the county.
Correct. Now, to be fair, we're going to go right from where the candidates said that they wanted to take the legislature.
Correct.
We're not going to make things up. We're not going to say that they did this or didn't do that.
Correct.
We're going to say this is what they promised.
Correct.
And for our audience, you can go and look up their campaign websites. We're going to start with two of the Democrats that were elected.
Correct. As you know, when I was elected, I had a palm card.
Yes, you did.
And I kept that palm card on my desk every single day.
For 4 years.
For 4 years, and I would check them off as I would do them. And I remember one time a state senator had come in, and he said, "Oh, was this your palm card?" And he picks it up, and he's going down, and he says, "Wow, you've accomplished almost all of this stuff." And I said, "Well, we still have a little bit more to go, but, I still have a year and a half to go, so we should be fine."
Well, but the difference is you ran to govern.
Correct.
And others run to get elected.
Correct.
And so when you run to get elected, you can say whatever. And sometimes that frustrates people, and they give people that seek jobs in municipalities, politicians, as being less than trustworthy. Well, a lot of times they do it to themselves because
I agree.
They say they're going to do A, B, and C, and all they do is start running for re-election from the day that they get elected.
From the day they walk in the door.
So
you're correct.
Let's start off with our legislator from District 5.
5, okay.
Now, she replaced, it's Kat Scott.
Correct.
And she replaced George Conklin, who was the chairman of Management and Budget.
And the DPW.
And the DPW. He handled both of those things. And let's take a look at, he did a great job. And we've had him here as a guest on Eye on Sullivan talking about the budget.
Correct.
Let's take a look at some of the things that Kat Scott promised. Now, first and foremost, and we heard her speak about this on a weekly basis, she was going to return civil discourse and process to the legislature. And just at the outset, folks, I think that you want people that are going to fight for the residents in their district and fight for the county.
Correct.
So I'm not sure what she means by civil discourse and process, but how have they done with civil discourse? I haven't been to many of the meetings. I've watched a couple of them.
So Kat improving civil discourse would be easy because we no longer have her in the audience yelling
right
at legislators.
Right.
I mean, she used to actually sit there and scream, at legislators.
And for the hearing impaired, she had signs.
And yeah, she did have signs. And so, a lot of the civil discourse was the very people who are saying that they were going to bring back civility. Like, well, if you stop yelling at people, that would be, the first step in the process.
First step in the process.
But if you watch meetings, and I've watched a lot of them, and I was out getting signatures yesterday, and I was speaking to a lovely woman in Smallwood who used to work for the county, and she asked me, "Do you watch the meetings?" I said, "Yes." And she says, "They are out of control." And I said, "Oh, I understand. They're out of control."
And folks, they're posted online. You can watch them. You can watch them live stream. You can watch them afterwards. You can archive them. And you can see that the anarchy that is displayed is often remarkable.
You have people screaming and yelling at each other, then getting up and walking out of meetings. And that happens on a pretty regular basis. The last 3 meetings that has happened.
That's incredible. And then she says, and I always marvel at some of these things because they put words on paper and you wonder, really, what does it mean? Sullivan County that works for you. Okay. Not sure what that means.
Okay, so we can talk about Sullivan County that works for you, because you, as she's talking about the people of Sullivan,
sure,
now have to go get a part-time job because they raised the taxes the highest rate in over 5 years. They raised your garbage rates by 20%, 1.9 million more than they should have. Okay. The increase was $11. They raised it by $30. Everything's more expensive in Sullivan County, that when you deal with the government of Sullivan County today than it was just a mere 14 months ago.
So it's really not working for most of the people in the county.
Well, they're working more because now they have to go get their jobs, and we'll get into NICEAG a little bit later. But
we will.
they're spending money at a rate. When I came into office, there was a $14 million fund balance. When I left, it was $87 million.
Well, that's irresponsible.
That was quite irresponsible of me. That I saved people money, and basically had a flat tax increase. I had a negative 1 year.
Right.
So and I had a zero another year. And so the fact that it wasn't their budget, and this is the tough part for most people to understand, because most people don't understand how budgets work.
Right.
So,
Why don't you explain that?
So when you first come into office, you are operating on the last legislature's budget, right? Because you're obviously not in office at the time.
So you come into office January
1st, let's say.
Whatever, January 1st. I mean, your term starts January 1st.
Correct.
The budget for the following year
Correct.
has to be passed by December around the 15th.
Correct.
So when you come into office, say January of 2024, January
Correct.
1, the legislature that was seated December 15th of 2023
Correct.
has passed the budget. So you inherit that budget.
Correct.
So you then...
So now keep in mind that legislature, took it from $14 million fund balance to $87 million.
In really 3 budget cycles.
In 3 budget cycles, we didn't bond a dime, not one time, in 4 years, and we paid off $26 million of bonds early. Never mind our regular payments, which paid down a lot, but early we paid down $26 million. So
and let's dispel a rumor right now, because I hear this all the time. Well, you got that money from the COVID relief. That was how much?
$14 million.
So let's give credit to people that disparage the good work that you and George and Josh did in managing the budget. $26 million of debt paid off.
Correct.
We did not use that money. You did not use that money to pay debt off. You used it for a project at the college.
So unfortunately, the college had been neglected so long through Education Law 6301 that the state has not given them funding, the proper 33.3% funding that they're supposed to, since 1973. So their heating and cooling system, and now how big the college is now, you have to take into account, the whole system was shot. Okay?
Correct.
I mean, if we did not step up and pay, I believe it was $6.5 million of the $14 million went to that alone.
Total was a $10 million project.
Correct. And we gave $6.5 million of the money.
Right.
And then we used...
and without that, they would have had to close.
Correct.
Because they'd have no heat.
And the one thing that people forget about ARPA money, it's to replace money that you lost during COVID.
Correct.
Right? So it's not like it's, here's a gift. No, you lost money.
Correct.
I mean, you during COVID, we couldn't do a lot of the services that we normally do.
Correct.
That generates money for the county. So it's not like it's a big old gift. The towns got a lot of gift money where we did not get the gift money.
Correct.
And, other people were like, other counties, got so much more money. No, because we didn't take that many losses because we managed it the whole time. I mean, that's the one part that people, we didn't just sit there and twiddle our thumbs. I mean, you were there.
It was constant.
I mean, it was every day. I mean,
barely a day went by that there wasn't discussions with you and George and Josh and Janet in Josh's office, myself, strategizing on where we are and what adjustments need to be made.
Correct, and we took some bold initiatives. We were one of the first counties that started laying people off because the governor. This is even before Governor Cuomo had said this that they would get some of your employees are going to make more money. Not working for you and get unemployment.
And in fact, the majority of the people that were laid off, in fact, did make more money.
Correct.
Because you took a look at where's the threshold of the money that they'll be eligible for with the enhanced unemployment.
Correct.
And you used that. I remember sitting in the meeting, you said to Josh, let's look at people that are at or below this threshold so that their families won't get hurt.
Correct.
It's kind of like he was working for you.
Correct. So it was. They actually, were able to thrive in that time frame.
Yeah.
Which was an ideal situation because it was, pretty tough times. People forgot. We had instituted the energy tax at the time also, which we. It was a big decision to do that. We weren't happy about it, but you have to remember it was pretty dark times when we did it, and
an uncertainty. We didn't know how long it was going to last.
Correct, and so, but so the way that works, it goes in quarters. So it's not like you're like in November and you're like, okay, I want to end this thing. It doesn't work that way.
No.
So you say you want to end it, you have to wait to the end of. No, I'm sorry, that's incorrect. You have to tell them before the quarter starts that you want to end it, and then it ends at the end of the next quarter.
Correct.
I mean, so it was, if you wanted to end it, the quickest you could end that thing was, in a 15-week period. I mean, it was very difficult.
And you had to tell them up front how
Correct.
long it was going to be. Was
Correct.
it going to be perpetual, or was it going to have to be a sunset provision?
And then we had a sunset provision in there, and we still ended it early. Correct.
So when your detractors say that the only reason you were able to pay down that debt was because of the ARPA money.
That's not true.
It's not true because the ARPA money didn't go to pay down the debt. It
At
paid
all.
off part of the college debt, which had to be done either way.
Correct.
And we were able to use that money so that we didn't have to bond the college
Correct.
project. And then the other half of the ARPA money, which came a year later, folks.
Correct.
They didn't just hand you a $14 million check.
They did not.
That money went for roads, as I recall.
So what had happened in the previous legislature, who overspent their revenues 4 years in a row. All right,
They were consistent.
Yeah. So they broke the cap their first year, and then they overspent their revenues every year after that. So the money that came in, they spent more than that. Okay, they were deficit spending. And oddly enough, in the deficit spending, and back then they used to bond for roads. Okay?
Correct. They didn't budget for roads at all, folks. Understand that.
Correct.
In the budget that the legislature would get would be $0 for roads.
Correct.
Then, after the budget was passed, then they would bond for the about $10 million for the roads.
So the budget I inherited we were going to bond for roads, okay?
Right.
So you have to understand that. So we did not bond for roads.
No.
So we used that money, and we also, and keep in mind, we spend about $17 million a year in paving roads. And in my term, we paved more miles of road than any other 4 years in the history of the county.
You caught up.
Correct.
Because they had fallen behind.
Correct. So not only did the previous legislature to me, bond for roads and did a very small part of the county, probably about 35% less than I did in my term. Not that I'm paving roads, but Ed McAndrew did a great job for us. We also did a lot of the culverts and the pre-construction work.
Correct.
That needed to be done. That sets up the following year. The reason that we were so successful in the road paving, it was that we were able to put money towards having the roads ready to go. So as soon as the blacktop plants open, we were ready to start paving. And that was the key for us, was that we were able to pave from day one because we had set it up the year before.
Right. The blacktop plants open sometime in April.
Correct.
So they had set it up in the fall and even in the early spring.
Correct.
Get that set up. Now, the other point that legislator Scott raises is that her mission was supporting the people of Sullivan County, including the county employees. So how's this legislature done by way of the county employees?
Well, so far, contracts are starting to come up.
Well, because of what you did, they really haven't had to do anything.
Correct. So this is the first time this has ever happened, by the way.
Right.
So I was able to settle all 8 contracts. You usually start with the nurses contract, and then you usually end with the jail contract, oddly enough. That's just the way it goes. That's what the setup. The previous legislature had taken a 3-year contract for the jail and made it a 7-year contract.
By kicking the can.
They kicked the can down, and then they made a very bad deal at the end where they gave the guys in the jail and the women and guys in the jail 2 zeros, which was a big deal. So they were kind of ornery coming into negotiations, to put it mildly.
Understandable.
And understandable, because they were like, we're not taking hits anymore, and we agreed. So I settled all 8 contracts, so that the next legislature wouldn't have to negotiate a contract on an election year.
Right.
Because that's what had always historically been happening, that they were negotiating contracts on election years, and it's a bad deal for everyone involved.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. It becomes a campaign issue. And
correct.
Under pressure, you often make bad decisions.
Correct. And as we currently have a $300 million budget. Your number one cost in your budget is your labor. So me as a businessman, I didn't understand why you would not settle that as fast as you could. So we settled all 8 contracts. Every contract had over a 90% support rate on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the NYSBA, the nurses, they had 100%.
Right.
Everyone else, when I say over 90, it was more like 95.
The Sheriff's PBA had a big number also.
Yeah, so there were 6 defectors in that.
That included a change of insurance program.
Correct.
That was a big deal there.
Correct. Teamster, which was basically half your employees.
Yeah.
I think there was 3 people that didn't vote for the contract.
Yeah.
It was less than a handful.
Mm-hmm.
We put up good deals. We'll see what kind of deals these fine folks.
So
put
through
up.
their first 14 months, the current legislature hasn't really had to do anything for county employees.
No, they haven't had to do anything because I had set them up, going forward.
So I want to go back just for a minute to the ARPA money, because I remember now legislator Scott, then she was just person in the audience, Scott, was advocating heavily that ARPA money should be used to give raises to people.
Okay, yeah.
Why is that not a good idea in terms of municipal finance?
Okay, so one thing, they did agree to give $500.
Correct.
Okay, and I voted no on that.
Correct.
Okay, and the reason I voted no on that is I wanted to give them 1%.
Right.
Okay.
And they wanted to give them a stipend of $500.
Correct.
You wanted to give it to them 1% bump right onto their pay, so that
right onto their pay.
Retirement would benefit from that.
Correct. So they all sat there and they argued, this is the way to go, this is the way to go. Okay.
They would also be taxed at a higher level on the $500.
Well, here's the problem that they don't understand. Okay, so let's say the average person gets taxed on their paycheck at 27%.
Right.
Okay. When you have bonus money, it gets taxed at 60%. Okay, and it's a one-time hit.
Right.
And it didn't do anything to increase their pay. So if you have, let's say the Teamsters got, I believe they got 4 threes, right? So if you got a 3%, so let's say you make, $30,000, or let's say $10,000 just to make this simple, okay? And then you got a 3% raise, you got $300, right? I'm giving you another $300. I'm giving you $100, but it raises your pay. So the next time you get a raise, which was the following year and the following year and the following year, you would walk away with close to $700 instead of walking away with the $320 that you walked away with.
Right.
And then no one understood that. And I said it 20 times. I was like, understand how this is taxed. Josh said the best way to go is on the 1%. It was my idea to go with the 1%. I lost that vote 8-1. I voted for it, and people were like, "Oh, I can't believe you voted against it." I said, "I can't believe that you hurt these employees this way."
Sure.
Then the checks get dispersed, and if you go on the old InfoWeb there, people were complaining, "Oh, we only got $320 out of this deal." I'm like, "Well, how do you think this is going to go down?"
That was told to you.
I mean, I'm the one that was telling you. I understood the mechanics of it.
So the next thing that Legislator Scott promises is she's going to support the elderly. Now, obviously, that was her one big deal was the adult care center, as she tried to make people believe that if the county didn't own the care center, the county was going to close the care center, which of course was never.
That was never on the
You're
table.
always looking to get better care
Correct.
at the care center. So what has she done for the elderly?
I have no idea. There's been no new programs initiated.
But the county now has taken back the nursing home.
I don't know if we have it back. I believe it's still in a lease situation. Right?
Oh, the county didn't cancel that lease?
No, they did not.
'Cause I remember being told that the lease was illegal.
So 14 months into the gig, this is, March is over for legislative purposes.
Right.
So we're 15 months into the gig.
Right.
The company that had the lease when I left still has the lease. Still has the lease today. And I believe they have another, a double-digit years on the lease.
Right. Right. So really, well, one thing they have done for the elderly is made it more expensive to live here.
Correct. I mean, they're making it nearly impossible. They're making it so that the elderly have to choose between their electric bill, their taxes, or food. I mean, that's what it's coming down to, unfortunately.
Yeah. And then her mission was to support the youth of Sullivan County. Mm-hmm. What initiatives have they started with respect to targeting the youth of the county?
They haven't done anything. The summer programs were the same summer programs. The summer programs that are going to be this year are going to be the same summer programs. There's no after-school programs added. There's nothing that's been added to it. So, when you talk in these monster, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. I never talked like that. I mean,
you said specifically you were going to bring broadband to the county.
Correct.
To the areas that are underserved. That's a measurable objective.
Correct.
I'm not sure how you measure, and maybe that's what politicians want. Mm-hmm. They don't want to have a measurable objective. They want to say flowery things that nobody really knows what they mean. One thing they have also done for the youth is they haven't addressed the chaos at SUNY Sullivan, and the result of that has been all kinds of youth programming that used to happen at the college, I found out yesterday, has not happened. It's all gone. Eastern States Wrestling, we know, is gone. We've talked about that.
Correct.
But even like the high schools using the field house for basketball games, it's all gone.
Correct.
It's all gone. The Coaches versus Cancer tournament that used to pack that place for 3 nights, gone.
Gone.
Did not do it this year.
High school games there.
High school games there, all gone.
Correct.
I don't know if I don't remember if they did the track meets at all, but for the most part, they've lost that. And I haven't seen much initiative from this legislature addressing what is about to be a catastrophe in Loch Sheldrake.
Okay, so they don't understand the issues. I've watched these meetings several times, and let me tell you, people have said a lot of things about Rob Doherty, a lot of things. They never said Rob Doherty was unprepared, okay? I went to meetings every week. I was in meetings where, people had been going to those meetings for 20 years. They were like, well, I've never seen a legislator in this meeting. I said, I just want to understand how this works. We were always prepared. We always, had a strategy on how to, move stuff forward. The term, that's how we've always done it. Used to drive me crazy because I'm like, well, it's not working, so why would we continue to do it this way? And so to sit there and say, I mean, some of her, she has zero accomplishments against what she said that she was going to do. Zero.
And I don't know that you could even measure any of the things that she has said she was going to do.
Well, as a good friend of ours once pointed out about somebody, that's a perfect job for that person because it's impossible to measure the results.
Exactly. So maybe it is a perfect job. And yet we're getting feedback from some members of the Uniparty that they're so happy with the job she's doing.
Well, she's for sharing sales tax with
right.
with townships. Again, she just does not understand municipal finance.
Right.
I believe they're putting together a committee of 4 legislators and 4 supervisors to study the issue. What people don't understand, and especially supervisors don't, and they've been told 1,000 times, there's a lot of things that the county pays for that they're not obligated to pay for. We went over it last show where one of the supervisors wrote a letter saying, well, this county does. Well, let me tell you, using Putnam, compared to Sullivan, Putnam's Medicaid bill is $5 million. They're one of the top 15 richest counties. You ready for this? In the country, not in the state of New York. In the country,
not in the Hudson Valley.
Not in the Hudson Valley. Not in New York Metro. Where in the country. So when we compare us to Putnam Valley, our Medicaid bill is 6.5 times that. We're the largest user of Medicaid per capita. It's not a fair argument. They don't understand because the state is so poorly run right now, and everyone sees it. They keep putting more and more on the county. So when you have our levy, so when you charge your taxes and you hear, taxes went up, let's say 3%, right? I think the cap last year was 2.54, right? So they say, it's not off of the budget that it's getting taxed, it's off of our levy. And our levy, I believe, is $76 million currently. So you're only generating, 2.5% of $75 million. It's not that much money.
Correct.
So when your budget grows, most of the time it's not growing by the taxation, it's growing by the funding that you're getting for it's a back and forth issue.
So you've got some experience working in kitchens.
I do.
You were a chef. You ran
big
major
restaurants.
chains. You own restaurants now.
I do.
The analogy that I'd want to point out, when you were leading the legislature, you weren't sitting back waiting to just handle the routine stuff that came along.
No.
So you've got someone that gets hired as a chef, and they just prepare the menu that's there. They don't make any changes. So they're just, okay, you're preparing a hamburger, you're preparing a hamburger. You were the chef that came in and said, I know this is the menu we've always had. Well, maybe this is why we're underperforming as a business.
Correct.
We need a new menu.
Correct.
Well, we're not seeing anything new out of this legislature. Your legislature would come in. You challenged the members of your legislature to bring things in, ideas, things you wanted to try.
Correct.
You challenged the staff to come up with ways of addressing problems and anticipating problems. You can't see 2 years in a row down the road. We know that.
Yes, you can.
So one of the things that I find remarkable as I looked back on Legislator Scott's campaign information is she says that but the only measurable, objective thing that she says in this Kumbaya document that she puts out is Conklin and Doherty were fiscally irresponsible, including to our people. Fiscal irresponsibility. Now, you inherited a $14 million fund balance.
Correct.
And then inherited 2 months in major surgery.
Correct. Major surgery. Yeah.
And then 3 months in.
Like I was hoping to live after the surgery.
Correct. I mean, it was literally life or death surgery.
Correct.
And then as soon as you come out of that, a little thing called COVID shuts down. So you were dealt a blow. I analogize it to the second President Bush, where he's just getting started in his first term, and gets hit with 9/11.
Correct.
You're just getting started in your term. 9/11 obviously happened in September, so President Bush had
9 months.
10 months, 9 months.
Yeah.
You had major surgery on March 2nd, and by March 15th, 18th, you had virtually a shutdown of the United States of America.
You're correct.
And
I had managed my business through that as well.
with restaurants closed, that was
Correct.
kind of significant.
Correct.
And through that, you navigated your business. But the leadership that was required to navigate the county through that could have been devastating, to where $14 million wouldn't have even paid for the hearse and the casket.
No, the other thing about that is that we used to only have, I believe, 1 month. It was less than 1 month money on hand to operate.
Right.
Right, and then we upped that to 90 days. So a lot of people don't see that money, but trust me, it takes a lot to run our county. And we took it from less than a month of money to operate, and we took it to over 90 days of operating money.
Before that, you had the treasurer constantly having to come up to essentially borrow money to meet payroll.
Correct.
Because you only had that 30-day cushion.
Correct.
And then she talked about rands and tans.
Oh, you learn a lot with Nancy Buck. Wow.
Revenue anticipating notes.
Correct.
And tax anticipatory notes, rands and tans. But folks, it's borrowing
You're
to
borrowing
meet
money.
payroll.
Correct.
To keep the lights on.
And we increased that, trifold of what we inherited.
And then she draws a line from your fiscal irresponsibility, where you navigated COVID, you navigated the shutdown, you paid down $26 million of debt, you instituted a tax and retired it early, and you left with a net gain of somewhere in around $72 million was the net gain.
Not only that,
over 4 years.
Not only that, we were financially stable
For the first time.
for the first time in the county's history.
And that's because the fund balance that you left.
Correct. Well, the fund balance, we controlled a lot of our spending. We had good savings. Other than the fund balance, just the way we operated as a whole was it's many criteria. As far as stress on the county, we were one of 3 counties in the state of New York. I mean, little old Sullivan County was one of 3 counties that had zero stress. It's a thing that the order puts out every year, and we could only dream to be in that. Our dreams came true. We were one of 3 counties to be stress free.
And then she talks about your fiscal irresponsibility to people. Now, that statement tells me that the person really doesn't understand finance at all, because
Correct.
You're not fiscally irresponsible to people. I mean, we made payroll.
Correct.
Kept the lights on. But maybe she's talking about, and she intentionally wants you not to know, but the contracts.
Correct.
Just give a quick overview of, not only did you settle the contracts, but these were not pay cuts. These were not massive layoffs.
Oh, no. So one of the things was in the sheriff's department with the COs, they didn't have any health insurance in retirement.
Right, so they couldn't retire.
Basically, you could not retire. And if you did retire, you didn't have any health insurance. So you had to wait till you were in your 60s to retire from that job, or hope that your spouse had health insurance. We gave them large raises. We took so on a lot of contracts, it takes steps to get to the full pay.
Right.
Okay.
The highest tier.
Correct. We took them down to 11. Okay.
From
20.
20.
From
so
20.
It used to take 20 years to get to the top pay.
Correct.
You took them down to where they got the top pay in 11 years.
Correct.
Why is that important?
Because then younger people are making more money. And they're spending more money in their community.
And it attacked the attrition problems that the sheriff was always talking about.
Correct. And so then the other thing was when you first walked in, and this is the only place that had it. No other union had this. When you first walk in, you have to go through a year of probation.
0 stage.
Yeah. So you did not accumulate any time.
Right.
So it really took 21 years to get where you wanted to be. Where we got it, so we got rid of that also. There's a whole lot of other language that was done in that contract. That's that would bore people to tears. But it's necessary stuff when you work in a 24-hour facility.
Sure.
that had to be handled. So
the bottom line, all of the correction officers, including the ones that had not yet been hired,
correct,
did better under this contract than they had under previous contracts.
I would go out to eat with my lovely wife after that contract was settled, and this, honest to God, true story. And every time we went out, if a CO was having dinner, they would get up from their table and walk over to me and say thank you to me.
Well, the mere fact that the COs could afford to eat where I know you and your lovely wife like to eat tells you that they were doing better.
They're doing all right.
They were doing better. All right, well,
right.
let's leave legislators. Well, before we leave Legislator Scott, what grade would we give Legislator Scott based on her promises?
Okay, based on her promises, she has not achieved any of the initiatives that she said that she was going to.
Nor has she even made any progress on them.
No, I mean the county. Well, we're in worse financial shape we are today than when I left office, and it's has nothing to do with the economy. It has everything to do because they were $3 million over sales tax, budgeted sales tax. So they took in an extra $3 million.
This year.
They overcharged the people of Sullivan $1.9 million on the garbage tax, on your dumping your garbage. So they had a lot of revenue sources go up, and they've yet spent $40-50 million more than what was in the budget, with nothing really to show for it.
Nothing to show for it. Well, when we started this episode of Eye on Sullivan, we could have said that there's no F in Catherine Scott.
No.
There is now.
Well, she's failed to meet any objective. I mean, I didn't make the objectives, okay? This is on her campaign website.
Right.
This is not mine.
Correct.
It's all right there. You can go look it up right now. I mean, it's the website's still up. I mean, I opened it, yesterday for the first time.
We opened it today.
Yeah. You opened it today. I sent it to you today. Mm-hmm. She's, achieved 0 of her objectives. I mean, so what would, you could sit there and say, well, I'm only 1 vote out of 9 votes.
Well, she's not bashful about speaking out, though.
No. Well, that goes back to the civility part.
Correct.
I've heard her say several times, I'm a legislator, I'll speak when I want to speak. That's not how a body works.
Correct.
You raise your hand, you get recognized, you speak. That's how the body works. If you want to be civil about it. And again, people who have said that I was uncivil, I tried to institute that, and other people would just talk over me constantly, and you have to try to gain control of the situation.
Well, you can't let the thing go off the rails. Now, Ms. Scott, Legislator Scott, was always very critical of Nick Salamone.
Yeah.
And
Salamone
Jr. And my understanding is now that she has replaced him as chair of Health and Services.
Mm-hmm. So addiction.
So how have we done with the health rankings? Because that was something that was that in the nursing home, the health rankings needed to be addressed.
So they had went down early last year, but they didn't go down for 3 months of their work, right? They went down for the previous legislature.
Right. There's a little lag time.
Correct. I mean, that's a question I always have. Like what has a new legislature done, and what is still simmering from the last legislature?
At least a quarter. You got to at least a quarter. There's going to be a hangover.
Well,
from the last
yeah. I mean, presidents talk about it all the time. That was my economy. This is his economy, and you go back and forth on that. Okay. But as far as social services go, unfortunately, there were several deaths. They literally tried to crucify you over a situation that we know the truth to.
Right.
Mr. Martucci had written it in Mid-Hudson News, wrote about the truth of it, and they sent people to his house.
Correct.
To see if he still had the material there. Even though we're in Sullivan County, they sent them to Orange County.
Well, we had offered the materials to them, not to get off, and now we can pick that up at another time. But those materials sat on my conference room table for 4 months.
So, we had a child, melt in a car.
Correct.
Nothing said about it. I mean, we just went on, how are the children doing in those situations? Addiction was a major issue, and they went over the addiction issue. And I'm the one that started the drug task force,
right?
With the Honorable Megan Galligan and Wendy Brown. And Wendy Brown will tell you, go to a town board meeting and say, who saw the drug? Should say Rob Doherty, myself, and Megan Galligan. That's what she'll say flat out. We dumped tens and thousands of dollars into Catholic charities. They were the only in-person.
They're the critical battle point in the opioid crisis here in the county.
Correct. Well, they've closed.
They've closed
under Cat Scott's leadership. The only primary care facility for opioids is now closed.
It's closed.
It's now closed.
I mean, they'll be closed officially in, I think, May 1st. But they're winding down. They're not taking new patients.
Correct.
And, when you compare the importance of an opioid care facility to this county, to the Board of Health office that they crucified you when they were moving to Middletown, when you had the opportunity to keep them here, but other legislators refused. And then you brought them back anyway.
Correct. So we had an opportunity to keep them here. Two legislators in particular said that's not going to happen. I have the emails. I have the voice recording. I have it all on that. They refused to go along with it. Saying, "Oh, we just bought that building. What are we doing here?" Well, we're progressing, is what we're doing. And most people misunderstood what the Board of Health is. It's restaurant and camp inspections is what it was.
Yes, they do.
It has nothing to do with health rankings. It has nothing to do with the general health of the average person in Sullivan County. It has to do with restaurants.
And there was never a thought that they were not going to carry out their duties. They were just going to be based in Middletown.
Correct. And so most of them don't, as we found out, don't even go to the office on a daily basis.
Correct.
They get it on an iPad, and then they go to the facilities that are on the list that day, and they do the health inspections, and they have the documents with them, and then they just send them in.
So, folks, if you have enjoyed this first installment of the report card, and rather than start with a second legislator, we're going to leave that for next week, and we'll pick it up with someone that the chairman may or may not be familiar with.
I'm very familiar.
Mr. Matt McPhillips, and we'll talk about his background, and we'll give him a grade. Hopefully, he can surpass because we don't want them to fail.
No, we want them to be successful.
Here. We raise our families here. Our grandchildren are here.
We want and again, we want them to be as successful as possible because it affects our lives as well.
Sure, absolutely. So, folks, if you've enjoyed this and the rest of our episodes, and the numbers of subscriptions is increasing every week. And today I walked into court, and the court officer grabbed me and said, "Boy, I love Ion Sullivan."
Whoa, the court officer grabbing you there. Oh,
yeah, well, it was there's only a couple that you don't want. But he did a nice job, and he says we really enjoyed it. So we're hearing it more and more.
Correct.
Folks, if we get you to subscribe, if you subscribe, once we get to 1,000 subscribers, we can start to look at interactive modules, live streaming. We've got to get up to 1,000. And to do that, we want to get the word out to people. Our objective here is to turn the light on. We don't have a political objective here. We want to turn the light on so that you're aware. You vote for people. We want to prepare you, like we've prepared athletes all these years, for the battle. And the battle is going to be the primary. We'll talk more about that as we get closer to it.
On June 24th.
And we want to give you report cards on how things are going. You'll make the ultimate determination. And so to get that word out, you want to share the Ion Sullivan podcast. You want to share it on your different platforms, on your pages, on your Facebook pages. You want to share it. And leave us a comment. If you think that what we're saying is absolutely incorrect, we, unlike other platforms, are not going to shut you down.
No.
You want to come on here and debate the chairman? Come on here and debate the chairman. If Ms. Scott, Legislator Scott, wants to come on here and tell us why Mr. Conklin and Chairman Doherty were fiscally irresponsible, because that's her words, not ours, we would welcome her to come on here. We're going to have some more of the people that are running for office. We're going to have some more of the people that are leaders in the community as we go through to prepare you. So leave us a comment. You want to drop us an email? It's eyeonsullivan@gmail.com. EYEonsullivan@gmail.com. And, of course, when you watch us on YouTube, you want to
smash
that like button. And those things will help us out and allow us to bring you the content you want. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you want to hear. Tell us we need to bring in whatever guests you want to hear from. The next couple of weeks, it'll probably be Rob and I going through the legislative report cards and get you ready for the primaries coming up in June for sheriff. But you never know. We will also be bringing guests in that can touch on different topics of interest to you in Sullivan County. So once again, Rob, the fastest hour of the week by far. Any last-minute comments?
No, I look forward to going through all the new legislators and, comparing their material to what's actually happened.
Perfect. So on behalf of the chairman, Rob Doherty, I am Mike McGuire. We thank you for joining us for this episode of Ion Sullivan. Have a great week. The weather is getting better and better each week. We'll be back next week with another edition of Ion Sullivan.